Let's go.
Welcome to the EdjSports Coach Rankings Show. I'm your host, Katie George. Be sure to follow EdjSports on all social media platforms. That's EdjSports on all social media platforms. And if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to give us a like as well as subscribe if you want weekly content regarding our coaches' rankings as well as betting analysis. And I'm joined each week by Ian O'Connor, Senior Data Analyst from EdjSports. How are you doing after another wild week in the NFL?
Pretty good. It was a lot of blowouts. I mean, it was an exciting weekend. A little bittersweet for me. Cleveland got blown out in the early window, but the Packers had a huge win against Seattle there, shutting out the Seahawks at home. So all in all, pretty good weekend. It's always a good weekend when you get to watch football for a living. So
absolutely. And it's a good weekend when we can see how our coaching rankings may change based on our initial unveiling, which, by the way, we got some interesting feedback from yours truly. Thank you. Good, bad, ugly. We appreciate it all. But I thought we would start our segment today reading a couple mean tweets. Okay. And just maybe if you want to rebuttal, feel free to do so.
Let's get to it.
The first one is from Brian O'Reilly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, O'Reilly. He said, no idea what EdjSports is, so I don't care. Well, you at least cared enough to tweet to us, which we appreciate, Brian.
Yeah, kind of a weird way to live life, I guess. I mean, I don't know what this is, so it doesn't matter. I mean, could miss out on some pretty important things in your life, I think, with that kind I thought process. Yes, but absolutely. It's Twitter, so.
Maybe you'll watch this video, maybe you'll subscribe, maybe you'll continue to learn and better yourself.
Perhaps. Like I said, social media, it's really, you kind of know what you're going to get there. But yeah, then we've got C Vans 45, Vans with a Z. So pretty cool guy there, I suppose. Says EdjSports is garbage. They obviously don't understand that Coach Saleh is a defensive guru. This one really gets me because we've got Brandon Staley, a defensive guru who was at the top of our list. And well, you know, Saleh's a defensive guru, but you're a head coach. I mean, you're responsible for a lot more than the defense now. You took the job. So nothing against Robert Saleh there, more so Mr. or Mrs. Vans, I don't even remember.
And does the analytics at all consider the backgrounds of these coaches or just purely the decisions that they make?
Just the decisions. I mean, like I said, you're a head coach. You're responsible for putting your team in the best position to win and preparing them. So they have not done a very good job so far this season. So, I mean, we stand by the ranking, but, you know, nothing against Robert Saleh personally.
No, definitely not. The Carpet Elf, decent name, a lot to unpack there. Would love to know more. Says this is a get post to prove why whatever metric used in these rankings should be set on fire and then thrown into the ocean, which I feel like, Ian, is a little counterproductive because if you're setting something on fire, why would you then want to douse it with water?
Exactly. I mean, first off, too, it's a get post. I'm assuming that means great post. Again, social media. Sure, sometimes it's a little tough decoding some of these messages. Cool. But yeah, I guess wants to set us on fire. It's like the Sour Patch Kids. They're sour than they're sweet. He wants to set our rankings on fire, but then wants to save them because he doesn't really think they're all that bad. So I guess thank you, perhaps. Not really sure. The next one's a good one, though. Even the person it comes from, we've got Carlito Frito.
I like it.
Pretty fun name there. So we've got all caps LOL, all caps truth. When Mike McCarthy is your second-ranked coach, you're doing analytics wrong. So there's a whole, I'm not sure Dallas is one of the best teams in the NFL this year. McCarthy, you know, he got criticized last year because they struggled even when Dak Prescott went out. And this year he's getting criticized because he's doing well. I'm not really sure here.
Carlito Frito, he made some good decisions this week, so buckle up for our episode today because you might be upset.
Probably.
But you should be happy with the fact that he made good decisions and he's high on our rankings. Let's just put it there. At Tommy_T_, that's a lot of underscores, 256. Using computer simulations to rank coaching decisions is like using 6-year-olds to rank dinner options. I like mac and cheese.
I was going to say chicken nuggets is what I would get, and chicken nuggets are good, mac and cheese is good, so, I mean, the coach rankings here and decisions must be pretty good.
We like your feedback, okay? So follow EdjSports on Twitter to get into the conversation or to send your kind regards, and each week we will unpack everything that is said. And pick some of our favorites. I think that those were good ones to get us kick-started for our general rankings update this week. And based on some of the reactions we got last week, we're going to have even more great feedback, right?
Absolutely, that's right. So Mike McCarthy is now number 1. So was that Carlito Frito. Hopefully that makes you happy. Probably not, but he is number one. He continues to make really good decisions throughout the year. I mean, we saw a couple weeks ago against Denver, he got stopped 3 times, I think, on 4th down, but made the right decisions there. Again, this week made some really good decisions. Edges out Brandon Staley, who didn't necessarily have the worst week, didn't have the best week. He had a couple errors that were a little surprising. I think he had like a 4th and 4 at the Minnesota 40 or 45 across midfield, chose to take a delay of game trying to draw them offside and then punt, which is pretty surprising from him. Then had a 4th and 2 at the Minnesota 6. They were down 10 with about 4.5 minutes. So he chose to kick the field goal there. We saw Sean Payton do a similar thing for our number 1 error. His was quite a bit worse. They were down 12. They were on the 1-yard line. But with Staley, need 2 yards. You're on the 6. You need a touchdown, extra point, and a field goal. You're already that close. Your chances of getting converting that are pretty good. Los Angeles has a good team. So yeah, that kind of moves him down a little bit, but McCarthy had a really good week this week.
Can you explain why some coaches move up and down and what it's indicative of? Because we saw a couple coaches move down the list and they were on bye weeks, so they didn't do anything to hurt their cause, but they're still moving down the list.
Yeah, so a couple of those, Matt Nagy, who people were upset that he was as high as he is, he moved down a little bit, so there you go, you're welcome. And then Zach Taylor, who's been pretty good, moved down. It just kind of depends on the week. So from week to week, you really shouldn't put a whole lot of stock in the movement in the rankings, because as you saw, some coaches that don't play can move up or they move down. You've got teams that are in blowouts like the Bills and the Jets. They really don't have the opportunity to make really high leverage decisions that impact their win probability much, because the Jets were at 1% most of the game. So the decision to punt or kick is like 1.1 versus 1. So yeah, it's not a huge difference. So the end of season rankings will really be the best as we see how they've gone from the midpoint to after week 17, how they've done over that 8 weeks of action there. But yeah, just from week to week, really, we'll have people that complain about a team moving up or down or a coach, but it's just depends on how the rest of the league goes a lot of times. But overall, in the end, it's really a good representation of these coaches at the end of the season.
Okay. I thought it was interesting, too, last week that so many people were unhappy with the rankings of well-respected Super Bowl winning coaches who are veterans in the league. And we hear you, but it's important to know that these rankings are for 2021 performance only. So Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, they're not going to get propped up because what they've done in the past, thus allowing guys like Urban Meyer, Dan Campbell to place higher on that list. Is that fair?
Absolutely. So some of these this week were like Andy Reid, who had a great week. He had 2 of our top 5 decisions this week at over 9% in increased win probability. Based on those, jumped 6 spots up to 17th. Still not where he's used to being, where we're used to seeing them, but they're kind of coming along. Part of that is due to their EPI ranking, which we mentioned is how they've performed to date. They're up 3 spots in EPI after that big win over Las Vegas. Going to take a little bit more to convince us that they're back, but a good start on Sunday night. And then he's up 8 spots in CCI. As I mentioned, he had 2 of those, the top 5 best calls of the week in week 10. Bill Belichick jumped 6 spots overall to 20th. Still not high, still in that bottom third, but he was up 1 spot in CCI. So really what's driving his increase isn't even his decision making. He's still one of the worst, one of the most conservative when it comes to 4th downs. Other people, even Patriots fans, have been saying this for the last few years. So it's not just us. But they're up 9 spots in EPI with a huge win over Cleveland. Absolutely embarrassing the Browns after the Browns opened with an opening possession touchdown, I think, and Patriots scored, I think, 45 unanswered, whatever it was, to destroy them. Cleveland was top 10 in EPI last week at 8th. So that was a big win, and that really jumped them up quite a bit there. On the other end of the spectrum, we got Pete Carroll, who drops 3 spots overall to 27th. Not really a surprise there. He's staying the same in CCI with that decision making at 30th. Just continues to be very conservative as well. Had a couple errors. A 4th and 4, I think, like the Green Bay 45 or 40, chose to punt. Had a 4th and 1 in his own 41 in the first quarter. You're coming up on midfield. That's not too out of the realm of possibilities to see a coach go there, and a lot of coaches we see go for it in that situation. They also drop an EPI I mentioned at the top, the shutout loss to Green Bay. That cost them a little bit. And then Mike Tomlin, we got a lot of flack for, drops 3 spots overall. He's now second to last. He's 1 spot down to CCI. He's dead last there. Had a multitude of errors this week, including our 5th worst, and that's even accounting for Mason Rudolph at quarterback. We know Roethlisberger was announced out, I think, on Saturday night. We were able to adjust for that on the fly, get that ready for Sunday before that game, and then they dropped 4 spots in EPI based on the tie against Detroit, again, still accounting for Rudolph. So some of these veteran coaches, started off low, a couple of them moved up. The other 2 are still failing the test and dropped down.
Pete and Mike will be watching for you this week to see if you can make some improvements. Are you ready to throw some things?
Absolutely.
I think we should throw some challenge flags. This is where we're going to pick the coaching error from the previous week and throw the challenge flag, challenging their decision. So if you have one challenge or one decision that comes to mind from last week, what really is?
Okay, let me get the challenge flag out. Oh, that's my phone. That's not it. I'm having some trouble, kind of like Pete Carroll this week. I mentioned had some errors.
Was
there
it
it
a
is.
pocket issue?
Challenge flag.
Or he just couldn't find the flag?
I don't know. All I know is I saw his phone on the ground and keys, whatever it was. He had a struggle. But anyway, Pete Carroll is not in this segment. Just mentioned him moving down. But mine is a tie between Raiders coach Rich Bisaccia and Denver coach Vic Fangio. So they both kind of what we call waved the white flag early in the game. Not really early in the game, but I guess to lose by less. So Las Vegas punted on 4th and 5 from their own 37-yard line. They're down 20 with 12 minutes left. So 12 minutes, was a lot in the NFL, but when you're down 20 against the Chiefs, who were playing very well, to punt on a 4th and 5, like that's not outrageous. From your own 37, just pretty much giving up at that point, choosing to punt the ball. And then Denver punted on 4th and 10 from their own 25. Might seem ridiculous until you realize they were down 17 with only 7 minutes left. You got to score 3 times in 7 minutes and hold the team, and you choose to punt on 4th and 10. That's just
not a good look.
Yeah, going to challenge those calls any day of the week.
Yeah, so I am going to challenge Sean McVay. It was 4th and 8 on the San Francisco 17-yard line, maybe like 18 seconds left at half. Mind you, they were down by 14 at the time. They send out the field goal unit. Fine, everybody's good with that. 3 points, go down by 11 going into the locker room. Well, they faked it and they gained 2 yards. It was 4th and 8. Like if it was a more manageable situation, I could understand,
maybe a little bit more time on the clock too.
Yeah, but just take your 3 points, go to the locker room, regroup, and then come back out. Like just take the points.
And Sean McVay, it's funny too with this situation. He's one of those coaches that a lot of people consider him aggressive. Definitely an innovative coach, a young coach who has had success. But in this case, he's typically more conservative. In this case, he goes aggressive when he should have been conservative. So, there's something to say too about a fake field goal, try and catch him off guard. A lot of times, if you're going to go for it on 4th down, we would
4th and 8.
Right, and we would much rather you keep your offense on the field. Johnny Hecker, who is pretty good, has completed quite a few 4th downs, fake punts. He's the holder there, had the ball. But I would trust Matthew Stafford over Johnny Hecker any day. Just a kind of a questionable decision there. I completely agree with you.
We're not all about bad here at Edge Sports. We also like to give credit where credit's due, which means we're going to install a gold whistle segment. Unfortunately, Jeff Bezos is trying to get to the moon, and they didn't deliver our gold whistles in a timely manner. So
silver's not too bad.
Silver one. So is there a decision that you absolutely love that you saw from this week that you want to anoint the silver whistle to someone?
Absolutely. This week it's Mike Zimmer. So this is a coach who I mentioned on the podcast this week. Actually, the last couple weeks on our Edge Sports podcast I do with Scott Brown here, and then the Football Outsider stream that I'm on Mondays. We've kind of hammered him a little bit for making some questionable decisions that we would probably throw the challenge flag on. But this week, with the game on the line, he chose to try and close out the game. They were down, they were up 7. It was 4th and 2 at the Chargers' 36-yard line. About 2.5 minutes left. The Chargers were out of timeout. So he could have kicked a field goal and said, long field goal, and said, if I make it, I'm up 10. The game's pretty much over. If they miss it, the Chargers get the ball, and they're only down 7 with over 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
He chose to go for it, where if you don't get it, it's the same situation as if you miss the field goal. The Chargers are only down 7, can tie the game or win it with a touchdown and 2-point conversion. He went for it to try and close out the game. He knew he could kneel the ball after they converted and win the game, not even give Justin Herbert a chance to come back and win. So they did. They converted and they won. So it didn't show up in our top 10 or our top 5 decisions. They were already above, I think, 93% or 92% either way. So it was only about a 1.5 to 2 percentage point increase in win probability. But he made the right call. He stayed aggressive. Ron Rivera did a very similar thing this week. So his was a little bit more clear cut against the Buccaneers. But yeah, Mike Zimmer gets my silver whistle. Next week we'll have a golden whistle.
Okay,
so
well, Mike
how about
Zimmer is going to have to share with Mike McCarthy this week.
It's the Mike Award.
Carlito Frito, I'm going with Mike McCarthy because, to your point earlier, against Denver in Week 10, went for it on a couple 4th downs, was unsuccessful. Easily could have come in gun shy this week against Atlanta, but in that route, I thought he stuck to his guns, and he kept going for it on a 4th and 5 and then a 4th and 3, converted on both of those. So I like the fact that he was confident and he didn't let what happened last week affect his decision making this week. I thought that was good on him.
Yeah, we see that from a lot of coaches too, where they, even within a given game, where they go for it. Yeah, they don't get it. It's that recency bias of, last time I went for it, I didn't get it. Sometimes there's a little bit of rationale to that, where if you've got some injuries in the game, or that your offensive line just is playing horribly.
Yeah.
But still, more often than not, on a 4th and 1, at least with a 4th and 3 and 4th and 5, that was a great job by him to keep going against an inferior opponent. A lot of people too will tell us, well, they're playing the Falcons, they're not good, they can just let their defense handle. Well, if they're not good, you don't get a 4th down here, you're probably going to get more chances, and you're going to do really well and end up winning anyway. So
yeah, that's fair enough. Lastly, we're going to pick our Week 11 head-to-head coaching matchups that we're most looking forward to. So this isn't about the greatest storylines each week or on-field matchup. This is 2 head-to-head coaches that we think have interesting situations moving forward.
Yeah. For better or for worse. This first one that I've got here is 2 guys that are completely different. You got Cliff Kingsbury, who is 3rd overall this week. He didn't move at all. I don't think he stayed in 3rd place. They're 9th in CCI, or he is, so he moved up, I think, 1 spot. 4th in EPI. They had the loss last week with a backup quarterback. We account for that, but they're still a top 5 team. I think most people would agree. Against Pete Carroll. So an NFC West battle here, but Pete Carroll, I mentioned, 27th overall, 30th in CCI. Only 2 coaches worse this year. He's consistently in that 27, 28, 29, 30 every year in our CCI rankings. They're only 14th in EPI. So a game that the Cardinals, they may not have Kyler Murray back from what I've seen today. He's been on the field practicing, looks a lot better. If they have him back, this should be a very good game. Even without him, Colt McCoy has the ability to keep them in this. But don't be surprised if this one comes down to a late 4th down between either of these coaches, and see if Kingsbury I would imagine Kingsbury would make the right decision over Carroll more times than not.
Okay, fair enough. I like that matchup. I also like Mike Tomlin and Brandon Staley because they're on opposite ends of the spectrum here. Brandon Staley is at number 2 overall in our rankings for making great decisions throughout the season, whereas Mike Tomlin, as you mentioned at the top, has made some questionable decisions, hasn't had a lot of success throughout the season. He's 2nd to last in our rankings, so very different sides of this thing. I think it's going to be interesting, and if Big Ben does play, I think this could come down to, a big-time decision late in the game that really could be a difference maker.
Yeah, and we definitely agree, a note on that one with Big Ben. Right now we have it as a 4-point game versus the market 6 points. So we think it will be much closer. And to your point, I agree with you that coming down to the decisions, I would trust Brandon Staley more than Mike Tomlin.
Mike Tomlin. Any other matchups?
Yeah, one more. Your guy, Mike McCarthy. This game is actually a marquee matchup on the field as well as a great coaching matchup. We got Mike McCarthy, who we know is number 1 this week. 6th in CCI, Dallas is 5th in EPI, so very good overall there. Andy Reid, only number 18 overall. He did move up 5 spots this week, I mentioned, and 12th in CCI, up 8 spots there. Had a really good game against Las Vegas. Only 21st overall, in EPI, but looked really good against Las Vegas. So a couple teams we would expect to put up a lot of points, and 2 coaches who should be aggressive that will contribute to even more points. More touchdowns, less field goals, less punts, hopefully.
Let us know if you agree with our whistle awards.
Our challenge flags as well.
Challenge flags, that's EdjSports, EdjSports on all social media platforms. That's a wrap on our coaching rankings this week. Tune in for more. Ian O'Connor, Katie George. We look forward to seeing you next week.